Now, where did I put it? Here it is. Welcome to the Toolbox. Tools for life and everything in between. Stuff you can use or toss, it's up to you.
Welcome back. This is episode 9 now of Tools for the Toolbox. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to introduce, I'm going to let my guest introduce himself, and then we'll get talking. So, right off the bat, who are you, and what is your military background?
Well, hey, Chance, thanks for having me, first of all. My name is Bryce Hooper. For those that don't know me, I am 11 years, 6-month, 18-day MSE Op veteran.
But who's counting?
Yeah, only us and convicts are counting time frames.
Exactly.
I did 3 deployments overseas, all with my transport family. And then also some domestic deployments as well, like the BC fires and the Winnipeg floods, like we've all done, and so on and so forth.
Good times. Now, for those that don't know, what is an MSE Op?
A glorified truck driver. Between the Army and the Air Force, I had done everything from mail delivery to VIP driving to driving an up-armored semi-truck overseas to plowing snow in Winnipeg on the Air Force Base.
That sounds like a lot of fun. You rolled in the AHSBS?
Yes.
Yeah.
Big transformer truck.
Those things were awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely bulletproof. Wow. Yeah.
Well, they were designed to be, right? So the whole thing was that it could be blown up and the cab would just fly off. Yeah. And everybody inside would be fine.
Yeah, because even the chairs were mounted to the back wall instead of the floor, so that way it avoided all the... And I myself never experienced any major battle damage in an age, but I did see what happened to somebody who had hit, and it blew off a little bit of the front fender and the stair going to the driver door, and the guy walked away like mint, right? Yeah, smoking a drink later, and he was kind of okay.
Yeah, I had the pleasure. I can't say the pleasure of. I had the pleasure of driving around in an AHSBS once, and man, those are some comfy, like the air ride seats and the was it pneumatic doors and are they pneumatic or are they hydraulic?
No, they're hydraulic
doors.
Yeah. 700-pound doors, man. They were ridiculous.
Yeah, and it just felt very futuristic, right? You press the button, doors open. Press a button, seat goes down. Press a button, like everything is just right here in your dashboard.
Right in front of you, yeah. Well, and it also helped that on longer drives, you had access to the fridge, which was right between you and the passenger.
I didn't know there was a fridge.
That's where we kept our Red Bull and sandwiches, right?
Yeah.
Our Pop-Tarts and our...
they didn't even know they had a fridge.
Oh, yeah.
Although, it reminds me, there was a point in time we were in, I think we were down in Nakane, and we made this ring of steel on this one operation, and I went outside for a smoke, so I jumped up on top of my ELAV, and all the vehicles were off. We didn't bring enough fuel, so we weren't allowed to run our vehicles all the time, so the AC wasn't working, and we were just boiling in the back of our or I guess it's say baking in the back of our vehicles.
Internally just rooted.
Oh, God. So I get outside, I sit down, and I'm having a smoke, and I look around this ring of steel, which the engineer lab is on, the Badger is on, the FAR is on, and the HSBS was on, with a dude sticking out of the hatch on top of the C7. And on the inside was 4 Lav 25s, and that was 9 TAC.
So the guys with all the experience, all the technologies, all the access were the ones being protected on the inside.
Yes, by basically
truckers.
4 C6s, some truckers, and a bunch of engineers just sitting in a lab like,
I'm so hot. I love it.
Oh, man. But I remember looking at that HSBS with his little, because they have the dual opening hatch, right? The cuts in half where you have a little bit in the front and a little most in the back. So you have like an armor piece to shoot from behind. And this guy looked like he was fucking, I don't know if he's ever been outside the wire other than just driving.
Probably not.
But he was sitting out there, it was like World War III. He had the gun up, he was all intense, like looking down his scope and shit. And I'm sitting there with the smoke, and I got my helmet off and a book out. What's wrong with that, dude?
First time he pulled Century, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, we were out in the bush, like out in the boonies. There was we had a mountain, I think maybe like 800 meters to our rear, to our north, and then the city of Nakane, or the town of Nakane, which was a hotbed for fucking insurgents. So the whole concept was we're going to go clear it out, but it just turned into the tanks, like Tango 2 and the Strats decided they were going to lead that mission, and oh man, it turned into a quagmire and a half.
But this sounds like we should be lighting a smoke at this point.
Yeah, really, gotta get the helmets on at this point. It was bad, but so MSE Ops, yeah, great dudes. I mean, the only issues I ever had with them was whenever we have to hand a vehicle back in.
Yeah.
You guys are nitpicky when it comes to getting your vehicle turned back in.
Who else do you think cleaned them after you guys?
Well,
us.
Well, yeah, we would clean them, and they would be clean, and we'd bring them in, and they the guys, at least here at Edmonton, they were a bit anal. Yeah.
Oh yeah, returning like field vehicles.
Yeah,
or just
like regular like civvy pattern rentals and stuff. And they'd be like, "Oh no, it's got to be clean." We're like, "We just were at the wash bay. Like we literally were just at the wash bay, and we drove here. There is a little bit of dirt on the tires driving on the road, and they would just be like, "No, wash again." You're like, with what? Like, what do you
where are we supposed to go and wash this?
I realized too late that that's the perfect excuse, though, for the day, right? If you have to return a vehicle to MSE Op, you just go to the wash racks and you sit there. Hang out for most of the day.
Bring it back at 3:55.
Exactly.
We won't care
Not
at that point.
Here you go, boys.
Yeah.
And then you get back to the unit, and they would be like, "What happened, man? What's going on? Where were you all day?" And you'd be like, "Man, MSE Ops, they just wouldn't return. I had to wash the vehicle like 6 times, and back and forth and back and forth. God, I had to hit the gas.
You had to fill up halfway through.
Yeah, fill up halfway through, just like it. Yeah. Anyway, but they're good dudes, and they always drove us where we needed to go. So I was quite happy not having to drive the 9 hours to Suffield or 3 hours to Wainwright or all the.
Oh yeah.
We had the bus drivers for that, so. Thank you. They were good.
And the cruiser guys are usually pretty good too.
Yeah,
and they've been in long enough.
Yeah.
Where they'll put a movie on and just let you be.
Exactly.
Just as long as they can take their beret off and not care about anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's always those old corporals.
Yeah, they've been in forever. Yeah. Mostly remusters.
Yeah.
There's a lot, like I myself, I'm a purebred, right? I'm one of the guys that I joined right out of the bat, and I was an MSE from the start. But I'd say 70% when I was in, everybody was a retread. Everybody was either a Patricia remuster or, like yourself, a combat engineer who's done. Yeah. They walk into the driver's room on DE, like on inspection day, and you could tell the remusters because everybody would have a rack of medals, and then you'd have an actual MSE walk in, and you'd be like, "Oh, there's your CD. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, I got it. Yeah. But you've seen the world,
So what do you do now? Now that you're done with MSE Ops, what are you doing?
Well, transition in 2013, and then I found myself just basically taking care of myself and trying to sort out what I now know is mental health and dealing with addiction issues and all of that other kind of stuff until I went to a course in 2014 called Cannabis, and it's equine-based therapy. And there I was introduced to cannabis as medicine from another veteran. More of an education, sitting around a fire, and kind of opened my eyes to what I used to be on medication-wise and what I gave into in the system, which then it kind of led my journey to where I am now as educator, brand builder, somebody who helps several different clinic platforms approach veteran patients with education and different material like that.
I think the key is education. And I mean, it's one of the reasons why I started this podcast is that you don't know what you don't know. And then when you do know, it's eye-opening sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Really just change your life. It can change pretty much everything about, how we go about our day with just a small piece of information. It's quite...
There's been so much misinformation given to us, especially in the military world, about medications, about things that can be prescribed by doctors now that were once told to us that were like career enders.
Yeah.
If we were caught smoking any kind of cannabis in the military pre-legalization, you were on a spin dry course. You were looking at demotion and or charges and or fines and or like you're fucked. There was nothing left.
It's basically a career ender because we had 2 guys get taken off our tour because they pissed hot for pot and just gone. Wow. No questions. They were off tour. And we all of a sudden had to have replacements come in, which, whatever, everyone's trained for the same job. But I think it was 2 or 3 months before we left was when they got taken off. So like they had done the entire workout.
Wow.
And then for some odd reason decided that was a good time to do it. But it's a career ender. And the one guy VR'd after he got charged and after he got taken off tour. Like there was all the fines and all that stuff that you would normally get. And then he just VR'd. He said, I'm done. The other guy stayed in for a little bit, but he was just known as a pothead at that point in time.
Yeah.
Right?
And then you're just...
One call and then done. No one wants to work with you. No one wants to be around you.
You can't be trusted
Can't be trusted. Exactly. So there's all that, the stigma and the BS around it. But you're right. Prior to being legalized, it was a absolute, you're fucked.
Game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game changer. Done.
Yeah. There was no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I think the education piece is the biggest one. We have to get past that hurdle that the government kind of used propaganda for the last 110 years.
I mean, kind of.
Yeah. They used newspapers and media to publicly say that cannabis was the devil and cannabis was actually killing people and cannabis. And this is like published news articles from 1910 onward. The worst part is everybody thinks that the States were the actual first ones to do it. In fact, it was Canadian politics that influenced Harry Aslinger and his other messengers of hell.
Yeah.
It was several Canadians that went down and paid them to start it all too.
That doesn't surprise me, actually.
Yeah. It was kind of a debacle in Canada where between the formation of the federal RCMP, because before they were the Northwest, and they had divisions throughout. 1921 allowed them to have a federal mandate across all provinces, and it also allowed them to become, at the time they were known as the Gestapo, that would go and do anything that the government at the time wanted, including that was immigrant control, that was force uses. I mean, with topics coming up as of late, including what they've been doing with the Aboriginals and everything else in our history, it's kind of known now what they were used for as a full force of enforcement.
Well, I mean, that's what they were designed for.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they were meant to go there and make the West livable.
Yeah.
For civilized people, I say with air quotes.
For the English, yeah. Oh, yeah. And let's make sure that those air quotes were seen, too. Yeah, it's one of those things where, they were used as a national force to basically make the West a livable area for those that wanted to be distinguished from the East.
Yeah, exactly. So it's no surprise to me that the amount of really negative stuff that they have done as an organization. Now, that doesn't change the fact they've also done some really good stuff as an organization too. So you got to see both sides of it. But this is where I get fixated, because today's culture and today's politics, everyone wants to espouse the negativity of any organization. Be like, these people are horrible. And you're right. Like, horrible things happen, right? No question. You can't deny it.
But they've also done a lot of good.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have to point out, my dad was RCMP for almost 25 years, right? So as a cop's kid growing up, I've also seen the other side of things where your typical blonde-haired, blue-eyed white boy living in 3 different Aboriginal reserves, living on like Vancouver Island, going to school there. There was also all of those aspects of my dad being one of the only cops in the area. So, we also did see a lot of the good that came with, but there was also, a lot of the bad too. So,
and I think that's pretty much in every organization, right? You could say that about, especially the Army. We all have great pride in what we've done as a military, but we've also done some pretty shitty shit. So
you exist for more than 10 years in existence. You go on things where, like, the RCMP are almost 100 years now.
Yeah.
How long has the military been around?
Oh, man. I know the engineers were founded in 1903.
Yeah, so look at that. And how many good guys is there? There's probably a handful of bad guys that you can think about too right off the bat, though, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's even in the cannabis industry. There's a lot of amazing people.
Yeah. And
there's also a lot of, and I hate to use the word, but scumbags who are out for their own good and who are after the financial gain.
That's in every organization, though. I mean, I'm a big fan of Jocko and his podcast. And a few times he's talked about, the SEAL platoons and how it's basically a bell curve, right? You have some really fantastic performers. These are like the awesome, wicked dudes, right? And then you have a majority of pretty good people on a spectrum, and then there are some people that just shouldn't be there, and they just shouldn't be there, but they are.
But they're useful for the environment that they're in, and they're probably good at one or two things, and they have tools in their toolbox, right? Yeah. And they are either used A, B, or C, right? Yeah. But they've also they can't be let alone. Yeah, it's no different than any other organization. That's the worst part.
I've been a student of leadership for the last little while. I made some serious mistakes while I was in leadership positions. And thankfully I learned from them and I'm able to move forward. But that is a leadership aspect because, some people have deficiencies. And actually, last podcast I just did, Arthur and I talked about it too, was that a good leader will see someone and say, that guy maybe not that smart, but he is awesome on the 6. Yeah. He's a little small, but maybe we can get him in the gym and build up some muscle, and then he can carry the 6, and he'll be awesome. Like that'll be the perfect tool for what I need when I need it.
Totally, yeah.
Like in what was that movie? Apocalypse Now. No, not Apocalypse Now. Full Metal Jacket.
Okay.
Animal Mother. When they were walking around, I think when Joker and Animal Mother first got introduced, and he was like, they were getting into a bit of a scuffle. They were about to start throwing hands, and the other guy was like, he may not be the most sociable person, and you wouldn't want to bring him back home to your mother, but in a firefight, he's the guy you want, right? And he's carrying the 60 with all the ammo and stuff, and it was just like, a good leader will be able to tell that, right? Let's not put him in front of the cameras, right?
Yeah, he's got a face for radio, right?
Yeah. In a fight, these are the guys you want. And, like I said, I think it's a leadership thing to find that bell curve, be able to see it, and then utilize those people.
100%.
And unfortunately, when you have a new industry like the cannabis industry, you don't have any. I can't say you don't have any, but you don't see as often in the development, power players kind of step up and be like, "We're going to take the lead here."
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of power takers.
Yes,
that because it being a brand new industry in the medical field, there's a lot of people who are already in the medical field or are versed in the pharmaceutical world, and because cannabis is a medicine, there's a lot of people that are taking advantage of that brand new system. There's a lot of people, you know what? It's been perfect example. There's an LP that is in Alberta. I'm not going to name them because I do have several friends in the organization. But it's showing exactly fiscally where they are now and where the organization is sitting, that the right leadership at the top definitely did not steer them in the right direction, right? Where he had experience in other fields, but it wasn't focused in the cannabis industry as to where it should have been. It wasn't patient driven. It wasn't advocate driven. It was where they were looking at hostilely taking over the entire industry so that way they could be one of the only big ones.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's proven to the point where now that CEO is no longer with the organization. Fiscally, they are doing horrendous, and they're finally turning to the point where they are engaging with patient reps and people to want to engage with their clientele now, because leadership just basically stepped away from it and organized on the top part of things.
Yeah, that's a very negative outlook, especially when you talk about leadership, because they're not thinking about what's happening on the ground.
Yeah.
And that, as this is the saying, I don't know, every military I've ever come across, the call in the field stands, right? Like, that guy is there. You should be listening to him. And how many scenarios throughout major battles where generals would get information from the front. Here you go, blah, 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 this is happening. And he's like, whatever. And then they lose because that was the key thing that you needed to listen to in order to, like...
There was that pivot point.
Yeah. Or on the opposite side, too, where somebody has just, a young lieutenant or captain has made a call and said, this is what's going to happen, let's go. And, the generals are like, fuck, that's a good idea. Let's do it.
Why didn't that happen earlier?
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
And then that changes an entire battle around a little bit, and the positive side of it. So, yeah, listening to the guys on the ground, man,
that should have been the focus.
Yep.
When the pharmaceutical industry has struggled for the last 100 years on side effects and not healing. It's a cycle of take this. Okay, now you've got these side effects. Take this. This will help you. Take these. This will help you. You can't sleep now. Okay, well, this will help you. Where cannabis was more of it's brought around like a holistic healing.
Yeah.
Where everybody's getting away from the large pharmaceutical stuff, stepping away from all of their pills of any kinds, and they're actually going into, they want to be able to use one medicine for all of their ailments instead of 30 medicines for the one ailment that might be bothering them.
Yep. Yeah, I was in that methodology actually at one point. With all of my injuries and all the pain and all the stuff the chronic pain that I have, I'm also a big dude, and so I need more pharmaceuticals in order to do anything that most people have. So, the doctors were prescribing me T4s, and I was like, these aren't working. Like, I'm still in pain.
Yeah.
And I'm fucking constipated, and my stomach hurts when I take them now because it was
my
constant,
brains
right?
are fuzzy, and I can't make things happen anymore.
Exactly. And so they're like, okay, well, the next step up is Percocet. And I was just like, no.
Yeah.
No.
See, and that's I went through the same cycle, man. I put some serious damage on my body within the first 3 months of me being in the military. I was a quadriplegic from my chin down.
Oh, wow.
I had a roommate on my threes who we were both drunk and we were wrestling, and he had me in a headlock and he tripped over the back of a chair but didn't let go. And so my neck and my back, basically everything snapped but nothing broke. So all of my muscles and my nerves pulled away from everything, and then there was nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So I spent almost 10 days in the neurological center in Toronto. I also met my doppelganger. Awesome dude with an Australian accent. No beard though. He had no facial hair, so he was like a doppelganger of me at the time, right?
Yeah.
Baby face, the whole 9 yards, and he walked in. And it was like day 3 or 4, and he made a joke and he pulled his pen out and he actually flicked the bottom of my foot. We weren't expecting anything because I had CAT scans and shit, or the CT scans and stuff the day before, and there was a full separation at my neck, right? Yeah. So they had called my parents, they had told them that they were going to be releasing me from the military, etc. He flicked my foot with his pen, my whole leg jumped.
Wow.
Something happened, turned back on, 4 days later, that Friday, I was drinking at the Oak Club in Borden again, back on course. So with all of that kind of battle damage before my 3s were done, I was on that same, like I got to 1 service battalion, and you know, the whole, when your chain of command says, "Hi, I'm Sergeant so-and-so, my rule is don't touch my Percocets, and if you have any Percocets, I need some." I was already the guy who had Percocets, and I was fresh in battalion, right? So on top of that, I've broken both my ankles playing baseball in Winnipeg. Being a truck driver, you have a lot of back damage from sitting on a sponge, basically, right? And so I was the same way, man. T3s, T4s, Percocets, you name it. And then on top of that, I didn't know what mental health was. There was no, like, yes, there was briefings, but like everybody else, it was like, yeah. I want to go on tour. Yeah. Sum up. Like, just shh. Yeah. I was also the guy that cut both of my casts off my legs so I could go on tour. Right? So all of those pills were downrange. Every tour that I went on, I had 6 months worth of painkillers, pain relief, antidepressants, you name it. And then fast forwarding to 2008, I wasn't even supposed to go to Afghanistan. Yeah. My now ex-wife, we were both posted in Winnipeg, and she was on exercise actually in Wainwright because she was supposed to go with 17 MSS, which was like the Air Force version of an all-in-one, like a Camp Mirage, but the whole base was ready to go. Yeah. And being a clerk, she was build-up training and all that, and I was actually getting a tattoo. And the guy that was on build-up training doing all of this stuff in Petawawa actually dislocated and busted his hip. Weekend accident too, right? So it wasn't even training accident.
Yeah, should have happened.
Yeah. So by that Thursday, I was in Trenton and on my way to Afghanistan. Yeah, no build-up training, no nothing, right? And it was me, the same thing, like cutting casts off. Like I'm good to go. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Same thing, bottles and bottles of Percocets and T3s, T4s, antidepressants because of my mood was off. But the docs were just like, here, take this. But then I couldn't sleep. Yeah. And then I was numb because of all the pain stuff. So then it was this, and it was a mood stabilizer, and it was that. Oof, and all of that just led to, well, after my tour, came back in February, March of 2009. And by November of that same year, I was in a psych ward. Yeah. Just because nothing was cohesive with my body anymore.
Well, not only that, none of what you're taking is solving anything.
No, it was masking it.
Just covering it up.
It's covering it up and burying it.
Yep, just take it and go. And you know, the mentality from the military is so painful for that because every course I've ever been on, you know, you're like, oh, you know, my knees are just killing me. And they're like, well, Motrin, socks.
Yeah.
Good to go, man.
Yeah. Did you put baby powder on your feet? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you're fine. Just keep walking. And like by the time I was an instructor, my knees are destroyed. Like I have tears in all of my ligaments. My shoulders are toast. Tears in labral ligaments. I got a herniated disc in my back. I got all these great, awesome things that I would then go run with the troops, or we'd do push-ups, or we'd do whatever. And I was on same thing, like T4s. I'd be taking 2 or 3 first thing in the morning.
Just to get going.
Just to move.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you bear through most of the day, unless you did something bad, and then you take some more at that point, but kind of bear through the day and then take some more at the end of the day. Or we just drink a shit ton, right? And
that was an
can't
accepted
feel anything
practice,
anyway.
Right? Yeah.
That's the way it was. At the end of the day, you just, okay, well, let's go to the ranks. And
even in my chain of command in Winnipeg, and this is going right back to like 2002, 2003, 2004, it was accepted to go to bleachers or to the ranks at lunchtime and have a pitcher with a salad and a sandwich.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Not at all. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's also, I'm pretty sure that's how I got my ILTIS qualification was after 2 pitchers at bleachers. I was told if I could drive the stick back to the battalion, they'll give me that qualification.
Sweet.
And that was just like, that was an okay, like they threw me the Allen key and said, get in kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, well, it's a master corporal and a corporal. Like, I'm not going to say no.
Yeah, they know. Well,
yeah.
How am I supposed to know any different, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's, oh, man. Okay, so now we've been chatting for a while now. Let's push forward a little bit. You've been out since 2013?
Yes.
Okay. How was that transition?
Well, I was a statistic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was that guy because of everything that I had let go. My mental health was gone. I had no physical control on my pain. I lost my now ex-wife, care and control of my kids because of both my mental health and my addiction issues. There was a lot of stuff that wasn't taken care of at my release. Like when they say that they're going to walk you through and they give you a package of stuff to do, and they say to do it at home. I actually never did it. And I'm probably sure there's hundreds, if not thousands of guys that did it as well, which then led to me getting, in trouble with CRA because taxes weren't done, leading to there was no benefits filed properly. I wasn't signed up properly with CISA Manulife. I even didn't have coverage for certain things up until this year. I didn't know I was supposed to have. Like, I was that guy, man. My file got lost, even going through rehab, through VA, that kind of jazz. I was given issues where they wouldn't fund, even though they sent me to the program. Yeah. 80 days into it, they sent me a bill, right? So Sunshine Coast Health Center isn't cheap.
Yeah.
And when all of a sudden you get a bill for $85,000 and your mental health is fragile as it is,
what are you gonna do?
It just made it even worse.
Yeah.
I was your atypical stat. I ended up living out of my truck for a bit. I got involved. Vets Canada helped me. They got me off the streets. They got me into an apartment. Got myself cleaned up. The Poppy Fund downtown Edmonton was able to line up most of my benefits, get me sorted out to an extent. Yeah. I can't remember where we were talking about.
It's transition.
So,
from all of that, which is, that's gotta be a horrible experience. The one thing I asked everybody on here was, if you had one piece of advice, the big one, I know it's hard to actually narrow down to one thing, right? But the one piece of advice for anybody else making a transition, or to you yourself 10 years ago.
Oh man, that's easy, actually. Very easy, because now I know exactly what you need. Everybody thinks that when you get out, you can do it by yourself. While you were in, you had to have a fucking team to do it. You have to have a fucking team behind you. Yeah. A handler, someone who is going to look after administration, because, guys, we've never done administration in the military. We were babied when it comes to, we had clerks send stuff to our chain of command and they made sure shit happened. Yeah. We need a full team of handlers, and that if you don't have a spouse or you're going through a divorce like most of us did as transition happens, try and have somebody on your team who can take notes, because your brain, even though you think you're clear right now, you may not be at all clear 6 months from now, kind of thing. And if you don't have somebody taking notes or stuff writing down or a proper hobby in place or something to keep your hands busy. Yeah. Now I know I'm supposed to lump all of that into one, but basically have a good team behind you.
That's probably the most common thing I've heard from pretty much every vet I know is, rely on the people around you. Make sure, talk to the guys that have been through it before.
Yes.
Ask a lot of questions. These are all it's basically the same thing.
Write stuff down.
Make sure you have backup, as a key. And
because you were never alone in service. No. So why think you can do it by yourself when you're out? Because there's so many more stresses when you're out.
Yeah. Everyone, I think, I can't say everyone, but most people I know that are in the military, they look down at civilian life quite regularly. And I just had this conversation with like 3 people in the last 4 days, which is actually quite funny. But we were absolutely babies throughout the military. Unless you were forced to learn how to do admin, you never did it. Yeah. And I personally, I said this on the last podcast too, that I got lucky because I got made a troop clerk. Right as soon as I got back from tour, I became a troop clerk.
Okay.
So I started picking up the admin, and I started picking it up at a higher level, and then I got put into the incel, and then I was at a regimental level, and I was doing all the intelligence work for my regiment.
Yeah.
Right, across the board. Yeah. So I got to see all of the upper echelon doing all of that.
The logistics of life.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw the board, and it finally made sense to me one day. The calendar, the big whiteboard calendar that's up in ops and training, and it's in every ops and training across the board. Oh, yeah. And it's got those big bands of this X and this thing and this tasking and this blah 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 blah. And for years, as a sapper, you always hear, "Oh yeah, no, we're so busy, we don't have time for that training. We can't do that training because we're so busy." And yet you're sitting in the bay as a sapper, like, "What the fuck am I doing here? Like, I've been sitting here for fucking 3 hours and nothing to do." But in ops and training, they are busy, and you can see it on the map, like the amount of admin, the paperwork, and these sites go to this guy and this guy. See, we want to do a joint training with the Pickleys. They're next door. Great. Well, that means that my ops and training guys have to coordinate with their ops and training guys. They find an open time for both of us to actually link up on the same day in the same place, which means that we need to talk to the range guys to make sure that range is open on that day. The amount of logistics is insane. Yeah.
And then you add logistics to it.
And then you add logistics, right? Yeah. The gas, the vehicles, the troops, and all these other things, right? But nobody, as a sapper, knows anything about that.
Yeah. Let's get on the bus and wait.
Exactly. Hang out, chill out, we'll get there when we get there. Figure it out when you get there. Yeah. But then a lot of guys get out. Privates, corporals, sometimes master corporals, the people that stay in 20, 30 years, and they're sergeants and warrants and sergeant majors, and they have a grasp on admin because they've been doing it for years as a warrant, as a sergeant, as whatever, right? Whereas most people get out as a master corporal, the only thing admin they've ever done, PERs. Yeah. Maybe. PERs, which are usually given to you, right?
Here, fill these out. Yeah. And you got 12 of them.
You just gotta sure, figure it out.
And it's a copy and paste format.
Exactly. These words have to be said at some point in these particular sentences. And you're like, great. Yeah, I got this, no problem. But then you get out and you realize, nobody's told you that you need to find a doctor. Nobody's told you that you need to find, get your accountant or taxes or something in order. Nobody tells you about having to deal with rent, utilities, cable, blah, blah, blah. These are things that you've heard of. Yeah. Right? Most people, when they get into the military, they're usually pretty young, 17, 18. I got in when I was 23, so I had a little bit more experience. But even then, I was 23. As a young guy, I didn't really know much. Yeah. So you've had your parents pay for most of your shit, most of your life. You join the Army, and the Army pays for most of your shit for most of your life.
And organizes
it for you, and all they do is give you paperwork, and they're like, "Here, sign this." And you're like, "No problem." Done. And we look at it as, right? We always look at it as
it's an expected thing.
It's an expected thing, but it's more of an annoyance, right? When you get called down to the OR because you need to sign some shit, you're like, "Oh man,
this is taking 20 minutes out of my day.
Why am I standing here doing?" And literally, you were doing nothing in another room. It's like now you're pissed off because you have to sign something that you don't really know about, right? Anyway, so I can understand getting out and having zero knowledge, zero expectations to have to do this, and absolutely no experience in it. Yeah. So it's that's a huge hurdle for a lot of guys. I can understand why, the one piece of advice you give people is have a team, because, man, it would make everything so much easier.
And if you can't gather a team, grab a person.
Yep.
Just try and depend on that one person.
Yeah. Major Mark Campbell and I were chatting on episode 3, and his piece of advice was ask questions until people are sick of answering questions.
That's a good one too.
And same idea though, right? You get as much information as you can stand.
Yeah.
And then ask for more.
Yeah.
Because that's...
And write it all down.
And then write it all down. That's the key.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into what I wanted to talk about today, which was alternative therapies in general. So we're going to talk a lot of different things, but I want to ask you what your mindset is or was prior to some of your treatments about what it is you're going into, and then afterwards. So like you said, you took an equine program through Camp Practice who are great dudes, and they do really great work. I'm a huge fan of equine therapy, so that's why I wanted to start on this one.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What were your initial thoughts on it when someone said, hey, man, you want to come work with some horses to help your mind? Versus afterwards.
I actually, when I was told about Camp Praxis, it was, I was already at the end of my first marriage. And it was like learn how to talk to your wife or spouse or team partner kind of thing, right? Going back to having that team on your side.
Yeah, they focus on communication, right?
Yeah, they bring a spouse or a significant other and you to a level playing field, explaining both the mental health, OSI, and making the troop or the veteran realize, or the first responder or the frontline worker, that even though their trauma is significant, that their spouse is not less significant.
Yes.
Because when you're on a team, you have to be an equal playing field no matter what. And one can't be more than the other one, because then that has a favoritism on who's doing everything, right?
Yep.
It's just, it was...
I've stated this a few times throughout my advocacy. I talked to a lot of different people about, what their jobs were. They don't feel like they matter much, whatever they did. Right? A lot of it has to do with the way Hollywood and the way we view war and the military as a whole. Right? You look at the infantry, and it's like if you weren't one of these guys, right? You weren't really a part of it.
Yeah.
And not to put them down in any way, like they have a job, right?
Somebody has to be the
close with and destroy the enemy. Period. Right? That is their job. Awesome.
Yeah.
I was the sapper. Right? Live, move, and fight on the battlefield. Let's do it.
Yeah.
You drove a truck. That's a hugely important job, because if we don't have the supplies to do what we need to do, we can't fucking do it.
Can't push forward.
Can't do anything. Right? Supply guys, very important. You have to have bullets. You have to have food. You need water. These are like hugely important jobs. And there's this sense of like, everybody has pride in their own unit and what they are, pride of their trade or whatever they do, right? But you can't do anything without the other people around.
100%. Yeah.
And
that's the team part.
And that's the team part, right? And especially when we get out of the military again, a lot of guys have that bravado and I was fucking whatever.
Yeah.
Nobody fucking cares anymore.
Pull your socks up, princess.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You have one job now, and that is to live the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So how are you going to make that happen?
To learn you.
Exactly. And being an infantry or being an engineer or being a truck driver or being special forces or being fucking, an AVN tech or an AV, whatever. You can take those skills and move them forward.
Oh,
but you cannot live that life forward because it's over. Right?
That's the injury. The injury thus created either physical or mental. And you can no longer be part of that team. You now have to create your own team. And you have to move forward with that team. Yeah. And there's no point living in that shadow, because that shadow is just a chapter of who you are. And if you dwell on just that chapter, you're now not allowing yourself to move and write your next chapter in life too.
Yeah, absolutely. The really tricky part, I think, especially with alternative therapies as well, is that step, right? The step into the unknown.
Yes.
Because, for me, when I got introduced to equine therapy, I grew up on a ranch. Horses, someone's like, oh, you should go talk to horses. I was like, I should go talk to horses. That makes total sense. Why wouldn't I be doing that?
Yeah.
And the connection is so crisp, especially for soldiers too. And I say soldiers, Afghanistan especially. I would say even really, Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, even Korea as well. There's a certain mindset for the soldiers there, and that is that they're prey. And we don't like to admit that we're prey because when we go on the offensive, right, we go on the offensive.
Strong, tough.
And we're like, yeah,
it's that bravado.
Yeah, right. And it's true, you go out on the offensive. But the moment that offensive stops, which they all do, you are now prey. Because the insurgent or the enemy. Now, I don't say in World War II as much because there was less of an insurgency. It was very force on force, right?
Front line.
You got big lines and that stuff, but the beginning of Korea where it was just fucking people were everywhere. You don't really know where the enemy is.
Yeah.
That's a mindset that we're in, and horses maintain that mindset all the time.
Yeah,
they are prey animals. They are constantly, the statements that I make for people are like, tell me if this sounds familiar from Afghanistan. Is this road safe? Those guys don't look very good. Maybe I shouldn't go near them. And where I'm sitting, okay to eat? Is this place good for the rest of my herd?
Yeah.
These are the basic questions that we ask regularly.
Yeah. Should I kick that?
Yeah. That doesn't look right.
Why is that shiny?
Exactly. And so you get into a mind of being prey where everything is a threat.
Yeah.
And when you work with horses, that's how they live.
100%.
So it's such a crisp connection to be made for equine therapy that, again, I'm a huge proponent, so I'm a little biased, but
no, horses will also check your ego.
Yes.
And because they are a prey animal, like you say, if you go up to them in a flurry on the inside and your anxiety or your anger or something is just going mock chicken and you try to attack towards them, attach them, and have that physical meaning with them, they're going to fuck off.
Yeah.
They don't want nothing to do with your crazy shit.
Yeah.
Fuck you, bye.
Yep.
If you calm yourself, take your shoes off and ground yourself, and maybe empty that sadness, anger, angst, whatever it is on the inside of you, and you actually take a couple deep breaths and allow that feeling to actually go away and mellow out, you'll notice that those horses will actually come back towards you because now they're like, oh, you're doing okay, dude?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you really fucking calmed down.
Yeah.
Maybe you could touch my belly now?
Exactly. And on top of that, just the recognition, of yourself, to be able to go, oh man, I must be in a state of chaos right now.
Yeah.
To watch that horse, as you walk up to it, and it fucks off.
It's just like, nope!
Something and to be able to recognize, oh, I've done something wrong.
Yeah.
And you're right. It checks that ego instantaneously. And
it's almost like a spouse or a partner.
If you can take it well enough, right? Spouses and partners, I just had this conversation, there are times where you're going to clash and you have to be able to step
and recognize
you know what? Their point is valid, regardless of what it is.
Same level, same playing.
Exactly. You're on the same playing field. And their concept is valid. And it's based off of their experience and their life and their whole...
That they are an equal being themselves. Yeah, 100%.
And you can't say, oh, well, I have more experience in this, so I know better.
Yeah.
So what? They might have a good point.
Yeah, and they've experienced life in a completely different manner.
Exactly. So, again, another reason why I did this podcast, right? Everybody has their point. Everybody has their ideas, their things that are effective for them that aren't effective for others.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so... what was your initial impression when you went into it and you're all like, horses? Were you in that this is going to help me right now? Or is it
Phase 1 of Can Praxis opened up my eyes to how big the playing field actually was.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that everybody themselves struggles. And I was in that mental state where I thought I was the only one struggling with this and there's nobody else that could possibly understand what I'm going through. And when I got there and realized that it's a common thing that actually everyone releases from the military is going to go through with it in some manner or another. Either it be loss of the uniform or loss of the ego or loss of your regiment or loss of, service or whatever it could be.
And all the people and all that,
Anxiety, sleep issues, depression, it doesn't matter. I mean, all of this can be added up into one. And when that was explained to me, that it was such a level playing field, and then it was explained to me on a larger scale of things, where I could actually control my body, and I actually could control what was going on the inside, and not just control the outside of me, where it's left, right, left, right, left, right, right. Squad 1, Squad 2, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. That's it. Left this way, we're going to go right that way. Whereas all of a sudden I could actually, I think one of the biggest things was when the mental health team on Cannabis sits down, either the troops or the spouses or whoever kind of goes to the course separately and explains what mental health is and what an OSI is, it's actually updating the gray matter to the point where you understand it, and not just from a victim, and I'm big air quotes there, where you're the person who's sick. You actually see it from a psychological standpoint, from a doctor standpoint, where it's explained in a science technical manner. But as a person, you can absorb all of that, and you can either do one of two things: carry on and do nothing, or adapt and change. And in the military, we've always been taught adapt and overcome, right? So you're going to take that information, you're going to relay it to your body, you're going to translate it to how you can properly do it. And then on top of that, Cannabis then takes both you and your partner or your significant other and introduces that prey animal and different exercises where then you can control the inside flurry, the outside flurry, pressure and control, everything, where as a partner or as somebody who's in a relationship, and it doesn't matter what side of the relationship you're in, you have to realize that other person may actually also be going through the exact same shit, but they're not vocalizing it because they're realizing that you are struggling just as much. And that's where Cannabis just kind of brought everything to a level playing field and introduced it to it like that. Oh, it's that kind of and that was phase 1.
I always called those aha moments.
Yes.
And that was when I was an instructor, you would see someone grasp the concept, not just what you and you could see it in their eyes.
Yeah, the light goes on.
Yes, there it is.
Good. Move on.
Now we can keep moving.
Yeah.
And it's I think such a huge part of transitioning out of the military too, is you have to have that aha moment. You have to have that moment that says, I can move on. Yeah. And
it's allowing you to, the analogy that I love to use is, not everybody likes to read, but everybody knows how to turn a fucking page, right?
Yeah.
Well, right now, you are on the last page of your military career. You and I, we're old at this, facial hair and all that other jazz. Somebody who may be listening to this may be on that cusp of maybe thinking about turning the page to the release portion of things, or it's allowing you to take that first initial step that they say is the hardest one in the mental health world, and then realizing that it's actually not bad at all. It's just another step in another story of your life.
Yep.
It's not the end of the world.
It is very difficult to get people out of that too, because naturally we want to be comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Like we seek out comfort, and if that comfort comes in a very uncomfortable package like the military, then which I mean it is. I mean, if you live a military lifestyle, it can be pleasant, it can be unpleasant. Yeah. But it is not. It is full of sacrifice. Like that entire.
You're not going to get rich. No. You're not. There's very little glory in it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even if you spend 30 years and you get a good pension and you come out and you can live comfortably afterwards, that 30 years is still not going to be a very comfortable 30
You probably won't be home for 29 and a half of
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to be gone for a lot of that.
Yeah.
But people will still seek that.
Yeah.
And the major difficulty, and one of the things that I learned very early when I was learning, like I said, I grew up on a ranch, so like survival was pretty standard teachings.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I always took to heart was, in order to survive in the wild, you want to maintain a state of general uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
And just so you don't want to get warm enough where you're comfortable. You don't want to get cold enough where you're uncomfortable, like where you're like really cold. You want to be just kind of like, I wish I had one more layer kind of thing. Like you're not quite there.
Almost feels like just being in the military, just uncomfortable.
Just uncomfortable. Right? But I also learned that from jiu-jitsu is that, and doing martial arts in general, is that in order to learn, in order to better yourself or build upon what you know, you have to put yourself in a position that you don't want to be in.
Yeah.
And then figure out how to get past that.
100%.
And especially jiu-jitsu and grappling as a whole, if you want to get better at jiu-jitsu, the best thing you can do is talk to your partner and be like, okay, I'm going to sit in a very bad position for me. You go ahead.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to try and get out.
That's experience.
And then just work it out, right?
Yeah.
And that makes you better because you're preparing yourself. Same thing we did in the military of stress inoculation, right?
Yes.
You start off in pairs, then you do section live, then you do platoon, and then you do company, and then you go into the larger ones, the regiments, the battle groups. You have F-18s flying all over the place.
And full battle runs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, those things are wicked, but you don't just start a dude on one of those.
Yeah. Like, man, wouldn't that be a fucking clusterfuck?
You can't even imagine.
Here, guys, go!
Yeah, a random private just, here's a rifle, just got out of basic, right? Yeah? Okay. Have fun.
That's downrange.
Into a live battle run, yeah.
Don't run into the lav and watch out for the...
Watch over the planes. The tanks are going to be shooting over there. Be aware of the M72s and have fun. Enjoy yourself.
Don't shoot yourself,
Don't
please.
shoot yourself. Don't shoot anybody else. Yeah. Oh, man. That would be intense now that I have that image in my head.
I would love to see the face of a brand new, or even for that matter, somebody who doesn't know what a battle run is, to be put in one of a lead vehicle and just experience the thunder crunch.
You can see that, actually. And if you look at any of the pictures of the troops heading to the beaches in Normandy, almost every single one of those guys had zero battle experience. And they did that specifically because they didn't want people to know what they were getting themselves into.
Makes sense.
And if you look at the pictures of those guys, it is intense. Like those troops basically saw basic training, some infantry training, or engineer training.
Yeah.
England, ships, Normandy.
Yeah.
And so you can actually see that. If you want to know what that's like, we have it on pictures now.
That is, I mean, I've seen the D-Day landings. There's one that really, really affects me when I look at it, and it's like there's like an 18 or maybe 18-year-old dude, and you can see like from like a side profile of his nose, and he's looking over one of his shoulders, and that's where the camera is caught.
Yeah.
But you can see in his face like, what the fuck did we just get into?
The fuck,
yeah. Are you still there, dude? Because holy shit!
Yeah. I can't even contemplate that because I talked to my granddad. He was an engineer in World War II as well.
Wow.
Him and I talked about when I got back from Afghanistan. I was like, all of us always have so much respect for you guys because of what you did, and he was like, we have so much respect for you guys for what you're doing, and I'm like, how does that even compare? Like, you marched across Europe.
Yeah. You guys walked.
Yeah, we walked. we have vehicles, and then you had a shirt and ammo and a gun, right? We had armor, and I had machine guns, and I had medical trauma kits all over the place, and I was Teachable C, and these guys are blah blah blah, right? And he's like, yeah, but we knew who we were fighting. Oof. And I was like, ooh, that's a good point.
And they wouldn't attack you until you got to battlefield A or B.
Yeah, to a degree, yeah. Like, if he said, if I saw somebody in a gray uniform, I shot at him.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Period, right?
Yeah.
And for us, we're like,
Man jammies at left, man jammies at right.
Yeah. I always remember we get these little int reps overseas, and they were like, be aware, white and yellow Toyota Corolla. license plates 3, 4, squiggly mark, question mark, fucking something. And you're like,
yeah.
Right.
Keep an eye out for a white Toyota Corolla and a red Toyota pickup truck.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay,
so
perfect.
You mean 98% of the vehicles out here? I'll keep an eye out for that one. Thanks, man. Great.
Yeah, but don't shoot at it. Just report it.
Yeah, just let us know.
Yeah.
White Toyota Corolla. White Toyota Corolla. White Toyota Corolla.
And the pickup truck!
Oh my God, it's both of them! Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, anyway, the point of that is that I can't remember what we were talking about initially in that one, but okay, so we're just going to jump into another point. Lost track on that one. Fighting the stigma of ignorance. So this is a challenging thing. I don't have a whole lot of time left, but we'll wrap up with this. You're in a field in which there is still a stigma involved.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the cannabis industry is becoming more normalized.
Yes.
Which is great.
Yes.
But, other things like equine therapy is another issue where not a lot of people know about it. And when people hear about it, they're like, horses, well, what is that going to do for me? There's other stuff. I've heard somebody tell me that chiropractic was nonsense. That acupuncture was
science.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been around for 2,500 years, but yeah.
Acupuncture was garbage. I've heard people talk about cupping being negative. Even massage therapy, which blows me away that somebody would say massage therapy is bad for you, but there are all kinds of people out there, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you fight the stigma that is ignorance? Because really stigma comes from you just don't know enough.
Yeah, 100%. That's actually the basis of why I developed Mr. Hooper brand. It's from fighting the stigma of mental health to fighting the stigma of men's mental health to fighting the stigma of cannabis as medicine, where you don't need to be high to medicate. You can actually medicate to a point where there is no cannabis-like effects, and actually that's where you should be sitting at throughout the day. Because if you're actually feeling your medicine, you've over-medicated at that point. And like CBD, THC, CBDA, CBG, it doesn't matter. If you've gotten to that point where you're high, that's
too much.
An over-medication. Yeah. And it can be a stimulus even on a CBD aspect where you've dosed too much with a CBD. And it is possible. Like, not a lot of people can experience it, but it is something that can be experienced with a sensitive system. And just breaking the stigmas of it all is with basic education and information. And that is what Mr. Hooper is all about, is publishing studies, either medical-wise on mental health, on what's the newest and the latest thing for trends for medical treatments, for different things, just getting out of the house, for example. Like mental health is a big one where you get, like with COVID and everything else going on right now, you're stuck in your house and everybody's afraid of going out. Well, one of my initiatives with Mr. Hooper is my cruise nights that I've done. Cruise nights allows you to get out of your house. It's COVID friendly because you're in your own vehicle, motorcycle, car, truck, van, minivan. If you bring an SUV, we'll fit you in the back, right? It doesn't matter. Semi-truck, anything but like scooters, bicycles. We've had a couple come out, but nobody can keep up, right? Yeah. But it's then also, you also meet like-minded people. They may be struggling in the same manner. Civilian, military, it doesn't matter. It's just getting out and kind of cruising. And then on top of that, I bring a little bit of education and a little bit of information on mental health initiatives in the area, cannabis products that may be new, or just information that you didn't know about. There's products that are coming to me and companies that are coming to me that are not, you don't have to smoke it. You don't have to use oils anymore. You don't even have to use the sprays that they have. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's initiatives where companies are coming out with breath strips that are CBD and THC. There are companies that are coming out with capsules, right? right? So it's all about that education and that information that there's not a lot of places that are going to talk about the taboo, but that's what Mr. Hooper is all about. I put my face in front of screens and in awkward positions because if I don't do it, nobody else is going to. And if you want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth and it's viable, proper information that's been medical checked and not just I saw it on Facebook, so I'm sharing it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where I don't see anybody else doing it, so I'd rather take the initiative and start it myself and then create that platform where, hey, you can't market in pharmaceuticals, you can't market in medicine worlds. You'd be able to market through Mr. Hooper, though, because it's a small, age-gated community, 18 plus. Everybody's curious about mental health. Everybody's curious about different medical procedures and or programs, and I've even partnered with places like Military Minds, right? A full mental health awareness program. They've sent me out t-shirts and hats and you name it, and it's that kind of stuff that we either raffle off or just in the marketing bags at the end of the night. So
Mill Minds is awesome, man. I think that's such a key point. Again, education is so important, and I mean, really, I think I've said it 3 times now. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? And until someone actually enlightens you.
Wow, dude, it's leading right back to the name of your podcast.
Yeah.
If you don't have the proper tool for the toolbox, you cannot accomplish the proper tasks in life. And sometimes you may not even know that tool exists until all of a sudden it's hitting you in the face.
Yep. It
might just be a random cruise night with Mr. Hooper, or it might be a Can Praxis program, or a program like Old Boots in town. There's all sorts of things.
Yeah, it's funny actually. It's one of the reasons why I got involved in the Canadian Walker Veterans as well. Is I had this vision of this Paragon was going to come down from Dwyer Hill, right? And JTF dude was going to come out and be like, "All right, everybody, follow me. This is what's going to happen, right?" And he would just he would lead us, and that would be the way to go. And he would be unquestionable, tier 1 assaulter, 30 years, blah, blah, blah.
Trust
right?
me.
Yeah, exactly. And you just look at him and be like, yeah, all right, cool.
Okay.
And then I realized that dude don't exist.
Oh, he's retired. He's smoking cigars in Mexico.
Yeah.
He's tapped out. He doesn't want to walk.
Not only that, at no point in anyone's career can you find could you ever find no one that would talk shit about that guy. Right? Because if somebody doesn't like you, always, right? Doesn't matter. Yeah. You're going to find people that aren't going to agree with you. You're going to find people that don't.
You're like somebody's bad guy.
Yeah, sure, exactly. So, no one is above reproach, which means that anyone could take charge. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should get involved. And then I got involved with the walk, and then I got promoted to the League of Edmonton, and I got promoted to the overall league.
And now you're the guy running it.
Right? So it's a tough realization. At the same time, it is such a it just takes the weight of everything else off, right? The moment you realize that no one else is doing what it is that you want to do, fuck, you're the one doing it. You're doing it, right? You're the one. You're the guy.
That's how I got into the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
I started by showing up at my local veteran clinic, changing garbages because they'd let me. I was sweeping floors, changing garbages. By the end of that clinic stay, I was the clinic manager. Yeah. Like if you stick around long enough, someone's going to give you an opportunity.
Yep.
You just have to be there.
Yeah, that's it. Really, you have to be open to it. Right? You have to see. And the other thing is you have to see it as an opportunity. That's a big one.
And you have to also be in the right state of mind and mental health to be able to take that initiative into that position. Yeah. And if you haven't healed properly, then you're not in that state.
Absolutely. It all. I think it's all interconnected too, right? Like if you're in pain, that affects your mental health. If your mental health is not in a great spot, then you are going to be, emotionally and spiritually drained all the time. And I use the term psychological capital quite often. Yeah. And that changes the amount of psychological capital you have to deal with all of the shit during the day. Right?
Yeah.
And if you are healthy, you're physically feeling good, if you don't have a lot of pain, or it's being dealt with through CBD, which I take, which is fantastic, and then that leads to you you can open up your mental health a little bit, right? And then you can start spending a little bit of your psychological capital on fixing yourself rather than just on
pain management,
dealing with the pain.
Yeah.
And then if you spend enough money on dealing with your mental health, it's capital, right? It builds capital. So you invest in your mental health, that gives you more capital to use 100%. On everything else. And then you can grow and change and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, we're just a little bit over an hour now. I really want to thank you for coming on. This is a great conversation. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this. So before we go, though, do you have any last points, anything you want to bring up that burning on your brain?
Remember to build your team. It's not a race. Take your time. You don't have to be mentally or physically strong within a 24, 48 hour, or even a year. If it takes you 5 years, at one day at a time, clawing through, do it. Because if you don't do it, no one else in your team is going to do it for you because they're fucking doing it themselves. Yeah. So I want to thank you for having me, man.
Oh, awesome. That was great. And if anybody wants to find out anything more on you, where do they look for you?
I'm all over everybody's social media. Find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Bryce Hooper or Mr. Hooper.
That concludes this episode of The Toolbox. I want to thank you for listening. I hope you were able to use some of the information that was offered. I want to thank all those putting it on the line for us every day. Military, veterans, first responders, and public servants. Keep up the good work. I look forward to bringing you more tools for your toolbox. And until next time, stay open, stay humble, and stay focused. Chimo.